We better get back, because it'll be dark soon, and they mostly come at night. Mostly.
Welcome to Mostly Horror.
Mostly.
I'm Steve.
And I am Sean.
And we're back with the last stop. This is the last stop.
The last
this
one.
This is the last stop. Last episode, everything. This week, The Last Stop in Yuma County is a new film coming out by director Francis Galluppi, which you may have seen his name in the news recently, announced as one of the directors, or actually the director of one of the upcoming Evil Dead films. So it was very exciting to talk to Francis, really dope guy. We may also have another interview that's coming up related to this film and horror related. So stick around in the future for that. Great dude. Excited for that conversation. We'll jump into some things you probably already know. But before that, this is a great time to remind you guys that you can leave us ratings on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can watch us on YouTube. You can listen a week early and ad-free on Wondery Plus or Amazon Music. Share us around. Send your favorite episode to a friend today. You're doing a service to yourself and your nation. And yeah, so I just wanted to give a little reminder there.
It's a huge help, guys. We really appreciate any and all sharing and talking about the show. It really does way more help. It does us wonders, more than you could believe, and leaving those reviews. It's a big deal, and we really appreciate all of you that have been hanging out and continuing to hang out and supporting.
Yeah. If you don't share us, someone else will, and you don't want to have
someone
else do that before you.
You want to be the first.
Don't let them do that. On that note, some things you probably already know.
I'm sure you already knew that.
You only tell me stuff I already know.
You already know what I'm going to tell you.
Sean, do you want to go back to Shady Side with me? We're going to go back to Shady Side. Fear Street.
I do.
Prom Queen. Following up. I can't believe that the Fear Street franchise launched in 2021. The trilogy launched in 2021 now. It's been 3 years since you scared me. And we are getting Fear Street Prom Queen, which is a standalone film directed by Matt Palmer, who I haven't seen any of Matt's previous films, but I'm assuming he's great. I didn't watch the little teaser schmeezer that they released, but it's cool to see that things are, coming together, and we're going to get another installment in this wonderful R.L. Stine series. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I did watch the little teaser. It's just it's not even like teaser. It's like a behind the scenes. Yeah. It looks like they're having fun. And just looking at looking at the
they look like they hate their lives, to be honest with you.
Everybody's miserable. Yeah, this movie looks like it's a drag on everybody involved. No, it looks like it's a lot of fun. It makes me want to go and pick up the book that it's based off of, which I'm pretty sure is just by the same exact name, with the same plot. I have to
I think it's just like one of the books of the Fear Street series.
Got you.
As opposed to the other one that was like a mishmash of various things, I think.
Of various things, yeah. But yeah, it has me excited. I think that we've talked about it before. I really like that trilogy. I think this is a perfect franchise to just keep expanding on. Like, you could just keep making Fear Street movies as long as you don't just assume that people are going to show up and therefore put less of a budget and less time and whatever. Don't just kick them out to where they're trash. But like, if you keep doing what you did last time, I'm all in, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see what prom season will bring.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm glad that Netflix is making original horror content, which leads me to something else that we should probably talk about regarding Netflix making original horror content. It looks like, so it doesn't look like. Variety reported, actually today as we're recording this, Netflix is planning a live-action Scooby-Doo television series. And the series is being described as a 1-hour drama project with Josh Applebaum and Scott Rosenberg attached to write and produce. I can't tell you what they've done previously. I didn't do research before watching this. Live action hasn't happened in a long time, since, Matthew Lillard, Freddie Prinze Jr., Sarah Michelle Gellar, Linda Cardellini were a part of it. This is interesting. I really see those people as those characters.
Sure.
And I guess outside of taking a beloved thing and turning it into something else and blah, the stuff that we talk about all the time, right? Like I'm just, I don't know. I'm concerned.
You're concerned.
I'm
is what you feel.
Yeah.
I don't know that
It's
feel
also
concerned.
Netflix. It's also Netflix. And that could
Which-
go either way.
It could go anyway. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say that means
Yeah.
nothing at this point. It
Yeah.
could mean that that's awesome. It could mean that that's awful. It could
Yep.
mean that they make a great show and they don't promote it and then it gets canceled. Who knows? they kind of tend to do that.
Yeah.
Here's my thing. I don't feel a sense of concern because there are so many different kinds of Scooby-Doo that I just expect new Scooby-Doo all the time. I can't
Yeah.
imagine that it's any weirder or of a different take than than the Scooby-Doo live action movie was when we were a kid, or the Velma series that's recently come out. I really think that this is a franchise and a property that is just so in the cultural zeitgeist that it's always going to be here and there's always going to be new stuff for it. So I'm down. What I'm curious about is what their approach is going to be. I know that Matthew Lillard has been saying that he has wanted to do an R-rated Scooby-Doo for a long time. I think that's a great fucking idea.
I mean, they said it's a 1-hour drama, so I mean, maybe it'll be darker.
Hearing that makes me think that they're going to take a more adult, darker approach, which I'm down for. There is so much, and before people are like, Scooby-Doo's a kid, blah, 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 blah. It is, and it has so much of that already. Let's get some more. The Velma take is a bit more adult.
Yeah.
So at this point, that's what I'm looking for. And if it's not that, then at least do a PG, family-friendly version that's awesome. So I'm really open, very, very open to what they're going to do. Very curious about what the casting is going to be like.
Yeah,
and
the casting is the biggest thing for me.
It's huge. That and how they approach Scoob, how they do that.
They need to I don't know, dude, just the 2002 and 2004 movies are both so good, and I feel like that approach is the right tone, the right effects, the right look, the right the right casting, all of it. I think that's the perfect way to do Scooby-Doo live action.
But so do you think, though, that they could, with a new cast, go for that same sort of tone and succeed? Or do you think that in order to really? I guess my thing is, if you make it too similar to those previous movies with a new cast, that you might be if that's what you're appealing to, then people are just going to wish it was the new cast, where maybe if you have a new cast and you try something different, I don't know. I'm open to it. I'm not saying that it's impossible.
Enjoyed that, and they're like, oh, or we do older Scooby-Doo, and it's just the same cast.
Sure. All right.
Freddie still looks good. Matthew Lillard still looks good. Sarah Michelle Gellar and Linda Cardellini both look good.
Give us. All right. This is what I want. I either want the Matthew Lillard R-rated with the old cast, exactly like you're saying.
Yeah.
Or I want something completely new, but Sugar Ray and Ruben Studdard are an absolute must.
If you don't, you have to.
You have to.
If you don't, you have to.
Maybe bring the Globetrotters in. That's a whole thing. Go like those special episodes. Let's get. Too bad Adam West is gone. Big rip. But we could have brought his Batman in. I don't know. I'm down for whatever, man.
I think that could be really cool. Yeah, it could be really cool. I'm still very curious.
Weary. I understand a sense of weariness.
Speaking of things that, speaking of most of what we talk about is just taking shit that already exists and spinning off of it and we talk about that a bit with Francis in this conversation about the Evil Dead. But Apartment 7A, Sean, have you heard about Apartment 7A?
No. What?
All right.
What is this?
Paramount Plus announced that.
Hold up. You have started 2 of our news segments with today. So
Well,
the vibes are off, man.
Sometimes,
All right.
listen, dude, we're not even talking about fucking Mickey versus Winnie,
Right.
the fucking movie that's
Oh,
coming out.
God.
Yeah.
What is
don't
it?
even. All right. How would you feel about a prequel to Rosemary's Baby?
Oh, I did hear about this.
So we're getting a prequel film to Rosemary's Baby, that is going to tell the story prior to the original film, exploring what happened in the apartment before Rosemary Woodhouse moved in. Here are the things that make me interested. So I'm going to say the thing that I'm worried about off the bat. I think that a movie that doesn't go to theaters kind of inherently suggests that it doesn't have the like full weight of production behind it. Like they didn't care enough to put it in theaters. And that could be wrong. Netflix makes original movies all the time. Some of them are good, some of them aren't good. Netflix also sometimes puts movies in theaters. Anyways, that is my first big thing. This is going straight to Paramount Plus. As of recording this. The things that I'm interested in. It's being directed by Natalie Erica James, who did the film Relic. Relic is a wonderful movie that was released. Let's see. I have to look at see when this movie was released. In 2020, I believe. A film that explores 2019, 2020, a film that explores trauma and generational trauma and illness, dementia, that sort of stuff. I think it's really well done. And one of my favorite, smaller horror films in the past couple of years. So she's the director. And that excites me. Also, things that excite me. The star is Julia Garner, who is in Ozark. She is also going to be starring in Wolfman, the new film from Lee Winnell that's coming out later this year. Julia Garner's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is all promising.
And in addition, we got Diane Wiest. We also have Jim Sturgis, fucking from Across the Universe in 21. So those are all exciting things. But again, it's going directly to Paramount Plus, and it's a fucking prequel of one of the best and most influential horror films ever made. Made.
Yeah.
So
I fucking love Rosemary's Baby.
Stepping off my soapbox, let you speak.
I have sung praise to Rosemary's Baby many times on this show. It is one of my comfort throw-ons. There's just something about drifting off to sleep, hearing "The year is one, Satan lives," that really just does it for me. It is not a story that calls for a prequel by any means, but I think it is totally possible to do a very interesting story about that cult, about the rise of that cult. If you just go back to the, I don't remember what the name of the building is in the movie, which is funny because I've seen it so many times.
Yeah,
the Bramford. Yeah, in my head, I'm just like, it's the Dakota. But the idea of if it's set there and if it doesn't go back too crazy far, and it's about that satanic cult and that older couple, I think that there is totally a story there that could be really, really interesting. What I will say is that I don't have much faith with everything. I mean, hearing about the director, hearing about the casting choices, that makes me a bit excited. But in terms of producer influence and trends that we're seeing right now,
yeah,
even I have a bit of classic reboot, revisit fatigue right now. It is crazy. So many things are being touched on, and it is becoming a lot. And it feels like you've seen the animated Sneetch's movie, like Dr. Seuss Sneetch's movie, right?
I don't know.
No, that
Sneetches get stitches.
Yeah. Do you remember, bro? All right. Whether it be from the book or from the animated movie, do you remember like
I know Sneetches.
Sneetches?
Oh, don't
yes,
worry,
okay.
I know Sneetches.
Okay.
But I don't know if I've seen.
There are Sneetches with stars upon Nars and
Yeah.
Sneetches without. And a guy shows up and he builds this machine. And they filter,
totally.
Sneetch goes in and blah, 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 blah. That machine is what I imagine them doing with like all of these reboots. It feels like it's just being kicked through this machine and the same thing is popping out. And that's just what I don't want. I don't want just like another fucking religious exorcist. Oh, demons are scary, whatever. Like focus on the cult and really go for it. Don't like if you're going to do it, fucking do it. And I don't know that they're going to deliver, but hearing who is attached gives me a bit of hope where I otherwise may not have had it. But with that, there's no sense of like, I don't care if they keep doing stuff like this.
Yeah.
I just am, whether or not I'm going to be interested. I don't know. Yeah. So as of right now, I definitely am in a wait and see position, but
I agree. Also, brief synopsis. When a struggling young dancer, Julie Garner, suffers a devastating injury, she finds herself drawn in by dark forces when a peculiar, well-connected, older couple promises her a shot at fame. So there's a little preview for you. Also, something I'm going to say live. What? Were you going to say something?
That's like what I don't want. I don't want just like another girl dealing with like a similar situation. I frankly don't even know that I want a like protagonist in this story. I think that
got it. Yeah.
Like telling the story from the older couple's perspective or someone that's like new to the cult. I don't know. I'm not saying it's impossible, but like right there is not what I want. Yeah. I don't want like a way for them to basically remake Rosemary's Baby by doing a prequel story to Rosemary's Baby. Yeah. I don't know. Sorry. What were you saying?
No, that's fair. I'm just going to say this live because it's interesting. I'm looking at our recording right now. It says there's 2 people, but it also says there's 1 in the audience. I didn't know that we could have an audience link. I can't see if this is just a glitch, if there's actually a person here.
Who the fucking dick?
Yeah, so, if we...
Reveal yourself.
If we die shortly after recording this... Is
this a ghost?
Just know...
You know what? The only thing I can
I'm going to message him. I'm going to say, who are you?
Do it. The only thing I can think
is... You guys are hearing
is
this live.
I was on our recording site on my laptop earlier. It is closed and in my backpack. But maybe I didn't like close out of the site, and maybe that's
we'll see if someone responds. If someone responds, you guys will hear it here first.
God,
let's end. No, he doesn't exist, so he won't respond. Let's end this thing. Is Umar, you probably already know. On a high note, and the highest note that I could say right now is the Raka Raka, Danny and Michael Filippo, the directors who did Talk to Me, are doing another original horror film. It was just announced by A24. The film is called Bring Her Back, and it stars Sally Hawkins from Shape of Water, The Shape of Water. There's no information. It's going to be under wraps. It's pretty secretive.
They're remaking Under Wraps? I'm down.
Yeah. But yeah, that's where we're at.
I'm just excited that they got something cooking. All
More
right,
stuff.
I can smell it from here.
That and a Street Fighter movie, dude. That's what they're working on.
Yeah, very, very cool.
Crazy shit.
Yeah, that is super positive, and excited to get some info when we can.
Raka Raka. Do you have anything else before we get over to our conversation with Francis Galluppi?
Should we do maybe edit this out, Chelsea?
Oh, let's do, we told you guys that we're talking about The Last Stop in Yuma County, and we're going to do a service to you all by telling you what the fuck that is, because we're just like, oh, hey, we got this guy, and you're like, okay, cool, what is this movie? Well, we're going to tell you before you talk to Francis. Francis, if you're listening, you're welcome. I don't know. Francis, You were so nice. I'm very excited that we had you on our show, Francis, if you're listening. You guys caught me in the middle of madness today. The Last Stop in Yuma County, affectionately known as Last Stop, stranded at an Arizona rest stop. A traveling knife salesman gets thrust into a high-stakes hostage situation by the arrival of two bank robbers who will stop at nothing to protect their ill-begotten fortune. This is a film that took Francis a shit ton of time to make. He talks about it in our conversation. It has such an interesting cast, in the best way possible. Just wonderfully cast. We talked about that as well. Any final thoughts, Sean, before we send them over?
I can't recommend that everybody go check out this movie enough. It is so unique. It's a familiar like story device plot, but told in this very unique way. It has such an interesting balance of like comedy and darkness is what I'll call it, bleakness. And it's filled with familiar faces that you guys are going to be like, oh no shit, they're in this movie the whole time. And Francis is exactly what you said, an incredibly nice guy. And yeah, dude, after researching, deep diving, going through some of his short films, obviously getting to talk with him, I'm excited. I have a lot of faith in his take on Evil Dead. It seems like it's something that he truly cares about. I feel like at least his movie is in good hands. We both openly said that we didn't really love Rise. So, you know, we know that a lot of people do, not trying to put it down, but it just wasn't for us. And I'm getting the feeling that Francis is going to make an Evil Dead that is just right for us, right up our alley.
Agreed. Also, go Google The Last Stop in Yuma County, because when it pulls up the cast, it shows Jim Cummings, and it shows the voice of Winnie the Pooh, Jim Cummings, not the actual Jim Cummings, and it's just really funny. And maybe we'll talk to Jim about that. On that note, we'll get you guys over to our conversation with Francis Galluppi, director, writer, and editor, and everything, a lot of other stuff of The Last Stop in Yuma County. Stick around for our mostly horror recs of the week. All right, we are joined today by Francis Galluppi. Francis is a filmmaker whose award-winning shorts have caught the eye of many in the horror sphere. On top of recently being tapped to helm a yet unnamed Evil Dead film, his feature directorial debut, The Last Stop in Yuma County, is in select theaters and digital on May 10th. Francis, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely.
Of course, man.
Cool.
Yeah, we're really stoked to have you. We have all sorts of stuff that we want to talk about today.
Cool.
But first off, we have to ask a question that we love to ask every guest that we bring on the show, and that is your intros to the genre. Maybe not necessarily the first horror movie you sat down and watched that made you fall for the genre, but maybe a moment when you were a little kid and you creeped out from, you know, your bedroom and watched something behind the couch that you weren't supposed to see, or had an adult expose you to something maybe a little bit too early. Do you have anything like that you could share?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I have older brothers that showed me a lot of horror movies when I was way too young. And I was like really scaredy cat. Like Disney movies scared me. Like anytime the fucking witch came on, I was like, you know, shielded my eyes and ran out of the room. And I think I started getting like really obsessed with horror when I tried to like conquer that fear, you know, where I like force myself to sit down and just watch like every single horror film. But I do remember like the things that really scared me were like Leprechaun and Chucky. Like anything that could go under my bed, you know what I mean? It was just like scared the living shit out of me. So those are the things I remember specifically Leprechaun, like really scared me.
Yeah, he's freaky looking.
Yeah.
The cover alone.
Also, oh, totally. And I was just going to bring that up, like covers, like, you know, being in the video store, three movies specifically were just the box scared the crap out of me. It was Jason Goes to Hell with the mask and the snake. I still like remember vivid nightmares of like that snake, you know, and going through the fucking, and Evil Dead 2 with the skull and Dead Alive. Were those, I just remember those. And weirdly enough, like Jack Frost, remember that like lenticular? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But all those horror VHSs, like, God, they just really like just burned in my brain.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and I didn't even see Dead Alive till like I was older. You know, it was hard to find. You know, the Blu-ray is like completely. I see you have a collection in back.
I don't even have Dead Alive to that point.
Yeah, I have like a bootleg Dead Alive, which I'm really like. But like years ago, Peter Jackson said he was going to do like Meet the Feebles and Bad Taste and Dead Alive or Brain Dead and like a box set like that he was going to remaster. So
I heard a rumor that was going to happen soon. So maybe I don't know if Dead Alive is going to be a part of it, but I definitely
crossing my fingers.
Yeah, I heard something like that. I think the Jack Frost of that is so interesting because I feel like that's when you could have the advantage of like people judging the book by its cover. Like
totally.
That's when you could get someone interested into a movie like Jack Frost because of that cover in the same way that you could with the book. Whereas like now, you know, if you have a sick title treatment like your film does, which we'll get to, like you still have that advantage, but you almost have to hope that like the poster gets picked up and put in subway stations and stuff like that. When you really can't do that other ways.
Hey, you're the first person to bring up the title treatment. That's cool.
Oh, we'll keep talking about it in a minute because I love it.
Let's keep talking about VHSs, guys.
I can bust out my whole collection. I got you.
Yeah. I have a massive Blu-ray collection. That it's in the house. I'm in my office right now, but I'll send a picture to you guys. I'll show it off a little bit.
I'm extremely excited to see. I am curious if you have a favorite like version of something because of when you bought it.
Because like the physical media.
Yeah.
God. Fuck, that's so hard, dude.
It's such a nerdy question.
I just bought the Vinegar Syndrome Red Rock West. That's a pretty cool Blu-ray.
Nice.
Okay. And yeah, just like the box sets, dude. Like the fucking Bergman Criterion box set.
Yeah.
Is great. The Godzilla box set.
You can kind of see it in the corner of my head.
Nice. Yeah. The Bergman box set. The Fellini box set's really cool from Criterion. But yeah.
Wow. I love it.
Nerds.
I'm so excited.
Dude, when you find your people when it comes to physical media, and like, oh well, Kino Lorber put that out 5 years ago. Like it's so exciting, dude. I love that shit. Well, did you see the new 4K transfer?
Yeah, I'm not sure where you're located, but I'm in New York, and I took a road trip recently to just like mess around in Connecticut, and I stopped at the Archive, which Vinegar Syndrome owns. It's like resales, like, and it was just insane. And so, anyways, I don't want to digress too far, but to go,
fun shit.
It's the best to go from the beginnings of your horror fandom to then starting to sprinkle it in what you're creating. You have specifically two short films that won and were nominated for various awards at a couple of festivals. You have High Desert Hell and The Gemini Project, and both of them have references to horror. Like High Desert Hell is a bit closer to that genre, but you have Frankenstein being showcased in one. You have The Exorcist being showcased in the other. I'm curious what your approach was on like sprinkling the genre on those and how deep you wanted to get when you're making shorts, but also just your approach to them. I know that seeing how you're a writer, director, editor of your own films, and then also seemingly a relationship to Jim Cummings, who's like the poster boy for DIY independent filmmaking. Like, I'm curious if you could give some like tips and tricks to starting out with your own shorts.
I talk about this all the time. I have like a handful of filmmakers that I talk to about getting their shorts off the ground and stuff, and it's always my biggest piece of advice is like start writing things based on locations that you have free access to, because that's always such a hurdle to get over when trying to finance a short film. It's like, oh, it takes place in a market and it takes place here and there, and then you have to get permits, and like so what I did with both High Desert and Gemini Project was like, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing like to begin with. I mean, my background is music. I made a short film around the house with my wife, and I was like, I love this. And then my friend Scott showed me some pictures of this desert house that his grandparents owned. So I went there, took a bunch of pictures, sort of wrote the script based on the location, and we were able to do it really for nothing, right? Like all like everything in post I did myself, because YouTube exists and it's free education and it's and all the software is free. You get DaVinci and you can color and score and or color and edit. And then, I was scoring and doing all the sound design and ADR and VFX myself. So like we were able to do these short films for like nothing. But that really all started with like writing based on that location, right? Because it cost us nothing to shoot there. And then it just, it's about finding friends that are actually going to drive out, 4 hours to help you do this thing. And then the Gemini project was my friend Matt had a cabin out in Oregon and he showed me a bunch of pictures and I was like, this is dope. I wrote the script based on that location. Then I had a van from like a tour van that I bought, a really janky van, and just packed that, drove everyone up to Oregon and made the Gemini project for, again, like no money, one actor, all that stuff you see is a lot of like split screen because it's, he's playing the same character or he's playing both characters. But yeah, man, just like, but in terms of horror, I guess because that was like a kind of two-parter, right? And yeah, I mean, horror is like definitely, I just love movies in general, like any genre. I love movies. But horror is really the thing that kind of gave me the confidence, or at least like push me to get out there and actually start making stuff, So it's always sort of like, my love for horror runs deep and I'm sort of injecting it into everything. And in the case, yeah, that is funny that you caught that though, man. There is an Exorcist book in High Desert and a fucking Frankenstein. I mean, I talked a lot about Frankenstein in Gemini Project because there's a lot of parallels, right?
Of course.
It's more than just like the book. It was like, he gives the speech at the end and all that. Please, if anybody's listening, do not watch either of these short films. Not great.
Do it.
Francis is like, I have a feature. Just watch the feature.
Yeah, watch the feature. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm like promoting these 2 short films, but yeah, I don't really know how to answer that. It's like, I love horror, man. I always have. And it's anything you love is going to like inherently make its way into your work, even if you're aware of it or not. Like, there's a few movies I've been like rewatching, like some old film noirs. Like I rewatched Stanley Kubrick's The Killing last week, and I watched Ace in the Hole last night, the Billy Wilder film. And like, I noticed watching The Killing that the ending is very similar to Last Stop with the money flying around. And I was like, oh my God, did I like, I wasn't like, yeah, exactly. I wasn't aware of it, but like maybe. And then like the ending of Ace in the Hole is like, he fucking Kirk Douglas gets stabbed and he falls and towards the camera. And I was like, that's sort of the ending of also the ending of Last Stop. So like, you don't really know, right? You just like these movies have an impact on you. Like it's one of those things that's like you might not be able to remember the exact plot or exactly what happened, but like some of those images are so striking, and those like the feeling that you got when you're watching these movies, they really have a deep impact on you, and you sort of like you find a way to inject that into your work, whether you're aware of it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. It especially for a creative, it just makes sense that you're like absorbing a lot of stuff, even when you're not realizing that you're absorbing it. I don't want to get too shop talky. We're going to, talk a little bit about the editing process a bit more when we get to Yuma. I am curious, specifically with Gemini Project, you are doing the split screening, and there was one moment where I noticed a shadow of one character passing over another. I'm just curious, like how hard was all the split screening for you?
Especially self-taught.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. I didn't know what I was doing, dude. Like I think this is going to work. It was actually all pretty easy though. I mean, nothing was too crazy. That was Matt's brother, who, funny enough, I credited as Fake Shemp, which, is we coined from, it was Sam Raimi coined that term. Nice. So anytime I needed to, whatever those characters were named, God, I can't even remember what their names were. But whatever, Matt's brother was there, and they look similar enough when his back is turned. So like a lot of that stuff is his brother Cameron. And then anytime I really needed 2 of them in the same frame, it was just like, composite. But nice. So yeah, he's a Fake Shemp in Gemini Project.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So another thing that you just brought up was your music background. So I guess this might be another two-parter. Curious exactly what that is, if you could let our listeners know about what your music background is. But also, I kind of wanted to bring up your connections with the band Mount Joy. We watched some of those music videos, loved them, and love that you got to work with Creed Bratton. That's just absolutely fantastic. So yeah, if you could elaborate on that, that would be great.
Okay, remind me. Sorry, what was the first part? The first part was talking about
your music background.
Yeah,
yes, your music.
Like, why did you have that tour van? Who were you on tour with?
Yeah,
that's what I want.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was like I started playing drums when I was like 10. Started a band with my older brothers, punk band called Confronted. I don't think you can find anything online about it.
Damn it!
But that was
search.
and then started a band. I was in another band called 3 Point Landing. That was sort of like a pop punk thing. And then I was playing drums for this punk band called Guttermouth, which was a band that I really grew up listening to. I was like 21 at the time, and everyone else was way older. I grew up like covering Guttermouth songs. It was very weird and
nice.
And
awesome.
then and then like bought the van for my band 3 Point Landing. Did some touring there, and then I was in like this sort of like Motown-esque pop thing called Insecure Alex, which like technically we're still a band. We like never broke up, but then everyone just got really busy and started doing other things. But we were never like, hey guys, like every few years or like, maybe once a year, somebody will like hit the group chat and be like, hey guys, you guys want to jam? So like technically we're still a band.
Nice.
But so yeah. And then the thing with Mount Joy, so that's actually kind of a funny story about that. I went to college for music, for drums specifically, the dumbest fucking degree you can possibly go to college for. And I went with Sotiris, the drummer to Mount Joy, and we like we got really, really close. Like he had an apartment down the street, so we were all just like always just hanging out at his house in between classes. And I was hanging at his apartment. We were really drunk. Came back, and there's these marching sticks called DC-10s, and they're like really thick drumsticks. And I was like hitting him in the kneecap, and he was like, "Fucking stop, dude!" And swung the stick at me, and I blocked it like this. I mean, this is a podcast, so you can't see, but I tried to cover my face, and he hit my wrist and just like shattered my bone. And I remember I woke up in the morning, and I was like, "Dude, my wrist really fucking hurts." He was like, "Fuck you," and didn't believe me, and anyway, it really was fucked up. I mean, he just kind of heard a crack, but like, I was in a cast for like 6 months, and I picked up a T2I, and that's when I made this like short film around the house with just my wife and I, with like no crew and no lights, and that's when I realized it's like, I want to do this. And it's funny because Sotiris, like, he is always like, oh man, I feel so bad. And I'm like, no, dude, it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Kickstarted my career.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It really was. Yeah. And then, and then I watched him just fucking Mount Joy, get to the point they're at now, which is so exciting to see your friend. Like, you spend your whole life doing music, and you're like, God, will I ever meet somebody that's like ever going to actually make it in this industry? Yeah. It seems so impossible. And then, he did it, and it was so cool. So yeah, that's obviously like kind of how it happened. I think I like pitched for one music video, didn't get it, and then pitched for Strangers, made a whole pitch deck and sent it to them. They were like, cool. And then it was great. They literally are like the fucking coolest collaboration. Like after that, they were just like, cool, we trust you. And for Bathroom Light and Evergreen, it was just like, here's my pitch, here's the deck. Cool, we don't want to be in it. Go do your thing. I swear they never gave me a single note on any of the music videos, which is so fucking rare, especially when dealing with musicians, and a major label too. Like the label never gave me a note, it was so cool. So like anytime, I think, one of the guys was just like, oh no, you got Evil Dead. Like you're never going to fucking do a music video. And I was like, no, I will make time. Like you guys are the best. I love their music. They're all the sweetest people, and like just a joy to work with. And I think it's really cool when you meet a band that's like, we don't want to be in the music video. Most bands are like, the idea behind a music video is make us look cool. And I despise that, you know? So when they're just like, cool, make a short, like make a short film, you know, tell your story. It's really fun. So, yeah.
And like Sean and I are huge. We both grew up music video people. And I think I think music videos are so important because it's almost when I see that a song is out, I normally will wait to listen to the song until I can watch the music video because it informs like how I feel about it. So the fact that you're like an extra part of the band and like informing what that, you know, song
that world
feels like to people.
Yeah. It's really cool. And I'm glad they have so much trust in the process. But yeah, the thing with Creed is I always, you know, when I heard that song, I was like, oh, this is sort of like a Chaplin, Keaton, Harold Lloyd-esque thing I can do here. And I had just saw him at the Hollywood Bowl, I think. And Creed came out and like as like a guest fucking, you know, he like played guitar on a song or something. So when I called them, I was like, hey, you think Creed would be down to be on the music? And they were like, oh, hell yeah. And of course he was. So that was really, really fun.
Wow.
Yeah, Creed's awesome, dude. Yeah.
So I can't encourage our listeners enough to go check out the music video for Evergreen. One more quick question. The Strangers.
Oh, yeah.
The costumes in The Strangers. Where are they now? Are they available for rent, you know, for Halloween or like a standard Tuesday night? Like, I love them.
Yeah, I have all of them. I don't have the masks. The mask guy kept the masks. I wish I had those, but yeah. You know, all those music videos were just like how I did the short films. We didn't have a production designer. We didn't have a costume designer. We didn't have like it was actually, no, sorry. On Evergreen, we did. I think Evergreen was the first time I ever worked with like an actual production. It was the first time I worked with a production designer, and she also did costume. But Strangers, that was all me finding shit at, you know, H&M and finding those fucking Yeti and Bigfoot. God, that was a pain in the ass. You're bringing back not so great memories. Thinking about trauma. I'm sorry. Exactly. No, I just was on. I was just telling somebody how terrible that production was for Strangers. It was not fun, but I'm very happy with how the video came out. Put it this way, we had that shot, you know, the shot that we keep going back to is the Spike Lee like double dolly shot, you know, where you need to connect two doorway dollies on a track, and we shot at Malibu Creek State Park or whatever, where those caves are, and it's it is such a steep trek of stairs to get down, and we had to fucking trek down two doorway dollies, the rail, a crane, a lambda. Like, it was brutal, dude. And then like after that, we had to do a company move all the way to like San Gabriel Valley, and the next morning we shot in Big Bear, and then till like 7 p.m. we drove from LA to Big Bear, and then had to drive back to Hollywood Boulevard and shoot on like on a rooftop and bring all that same equipment, the two dolly, everything up to the roof, and then do fake snow. It was, and it was right in the beginning of COVID, to where we were like completely understaffed. Everyone was wearing multiple hats. Like, it was almost a 24-hour day. It was fucking brutal.
Wow. The magic of DIY.
Right.
Of independent filmmaking.
Yeah. So when it came time to doing Evergreen, I was like, no, dude, we're going to have 8-hour days. It's going to be super cushy. We're going to have fucking, you know, we're going to give ourselves 4 days. So that was a little bit easier, but
that is, you know, you gotta take the good with the bad. It all evens out eventually. So let's talk about the last stop in Yuma County. You called it Last Stop, so I'm going to call it Last Stop. The title treatment. People start with the title, as your movie will. I'm curious if that was something that someone created and you thought that it was great, or you knew that you wanted to have a film that had a, you know, for lack of a better term, iconic title treatment. I know I said earlier, I really appreciate when you can associate, like, anytime I think of this film now, I'm going to think of that title treatment in the way that
that's
I see
cool,
it.
man.
I'm just curious how that came about.
So one of my favorite artists, Matt Ryan Tobin, I'm a huge poster nerd, as you can tell from my office. Been a huge fan of Matty, and I met him. I mean, I would always like go to his booth and stuff at these art shows, but when High Desert Hell was playing at a film festival in Cincinnati, he saw High Desert, and he was like, man, I wish you would have asked me to do the poster. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I would love that, you know? And anyway, we became fast friends, and I sent him a really early cut of Gemini Project, and he watched it and like didn't respond. I remember for like a week or so, or 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, fuck, he hated it, you know? And then he sent me like the sweetest email and was like, hey man, like I watched it and I just like had to create this artwork. And he did the poster for the Gemini Project, which I think you can kind of see in back of me. Hold on. Right there. Yeah.
Nice.
And
you still got the SJC drum kit too. So it's all,
there. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, he did that poster for me, which was so cool. And like I said, we just became like good friends. And, you know, so when I was writing the script, like even like in the middle of, I don't even think the script was done, I hit up Maddie and I was just like, hey man, like, can you do a title treatment for this movie that I'm working on right now called The Last Stop in Yuma County? I sort of gave him a couple references, and then he spit this thing out, and it is, I love it. It hasn't changed a bit, you know. It's still, and he's done that with like I have a Western that I wrote, and I hit him up and I was like, can you do a title treatment for this? And he did it. So and then he did the poster for Last Stop, and he's such a thoughtful artist. He puts so much thought and heart into his work, and I hope I can continue to have him like, you know, create posters and title treatments for me.
Yeah, it has such like an authentic, like, you know, I don't want to say like throwback feel to it, but it just the atmosphere of the title fits the atmosphere of the movie. Yes. It's just very cohesive, which is
that's
beautiful
cool
to have. Yeah,
it felt right. Yeah.
If you don't follow Matt Ryan Tobin, shout out to him. He's fucking very talented.
Absolutely. We have to talk about the cast a little bit. I've heard in some other interviews, you know, you're talking about a lot of these people were your dream cast, that, you know, people you were thinking about while writing it. You have a lot of familiar faces for, you know, horror fans. Obviously, Barbara Crampton shows up, Richard Brake, even Jim Cummings,
Jocelyn, Alex.
Yeah, Jocelyn, Alex Esso, like Faison Love. Faison. I couldn't, but I just think of Elf, not exactly horror, but that's immediately where my brain goes.
Yeah. But also Farmer Zach from Detroiters, underrated role for Faison, but just had to mention.
But yeah, just curious what exactly the process was, you know, getting everybody together and how it felt once you had them there. Was there this kind of, oh shit moment of, you know, all these people I admire and I'm in charge of the show?
Yeah, so there's a very different movie. There were so many versions of this movie that didn't happen. I can kind of tell you guys, I know I've like told this story a lot, but I'll say it if you guys haven't heard it, about sort of the process of getting this thing made, and which will tie into how I got these actors. But so my first short, High Desert Hell, played at the festival in Cincinnati where I met Matt Tobin, and nobody showed up to the screening. It was fucking terrible. I wasted my money. I thought I wasted my money flying out to Cincinnati because it was like 8 a.m. opening or morning after the opening night fucking party. Nobody showed up. But James saw it and was like, yo, I'll give you, James is our EP. He was like, I'll give you $50,000 for whatever you do next. And I was like, okay, cool. I think I can make 3 movies for $50,000. Like joking. But that was how like little I knew, you know, like I was like $50,000 is so much money I could do. So I wrote Last Stop, and based on a location out in Palmdale, and purposely try to make it contained to one room and stuff. And then we sent it to, and I always had Jocelyn in mind. I always had Rich in mind. I had like a few of these characters very, very like early on when I was writing. But then we got the script to Richard Brake, who I definitely wrote with Bo, and I had him in mind when I was writing the character of Bo. But Rich is the sweetest guy ever. He said yes, even though how small we were aiming to do this movie for. So at that point, I was like, we could do this, you know, bigger. Maybe we got Richard Brake. He's a name, right? He's like the Game of Thrones, dude.
He's the Night King.
He's the Night King. Yeah. So I ended up optioning the script to a company that told me, you know, we're going to make this movie for $5 million and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Signed the option. And it was just really, I didn't realize at the time, but like, it was a name game. It was like, we need to get this famous quote unquote person with value, and then that will, warrant the budget. And that was not the movie I wanted to make. And so it was really, really frustrating. It was a lot of gatekeeping. It was a lot of a lot of frustration. And also honestly, we weren't getting any luck. Like, none of these names wanted to were willing to sign on to a first time filmmaker. And, so once the option expired, I pulled it, and I just started, I still had a casting director, David Guglielmo, who, with that initial development money, I had David on board. And so I just started writing all these actors personalized letters and having David get them out, and got really lucky. And it was like, once at this point we didn't even have any money. And I kind of just kept pushing my luck. It was like, we got Jim, and then we got Jocelyn, and then we got, Rich, and then Nick. And every time it was just like, all right, who's next? Oh, the reset. Like, until the very end, it was like, all right, we have one more role to cast. It's the receptionist. I was like, okay, cool. Like, let's just look at some tapes. And it's like, we've gotten so lucky, maybe we can try Barbara Crampton. And it was like, in hindsight, that was really insane, but luckily she said yes, and we just kept getting really lucky with this cast. And then, I was basically pretending like we had money, right? It was like casting. I was like fucking prepping so much, shot listing everything, using shot designer, going to the location once a week, photo boarding, calling HODs, like really just starting to make this movie with pretending like we were making it. And then the guy who gave me the $50,000, James, our EP, he ended up selling his house to finance it. So we were a completely independent project, and wow. We would have never been able to make this movie if he didn't make that decision. It was one of those things where, like, pitching this, it's a hard sell. It's a period piece. It's a fucking like neo-noir Western. Like, it's not horror. And if he didn't make that decision, I don't think this movie would have gotten made. So
wow,
it was a wild ride, dude.
Yeah, that's it. And how you talked about optioning it, how long has this process taken? Because I'm sure people don't realize how long. Like,
I have had 2 children in the time it took me to make this movie.
Whoa,
really? Yeah. I mean, it's 5 years of my life. Like, wow. I mean, like 4.5 at this point. But and it's every single day of my life for the past 4.5 years. It's a full-time job trying to get an independent movie made. It is, every day is the last stop in Yuma County. Every fucking day. That was like my daughter's first words. Like, anytime she would see the logo, she'd be like, last stop in Yuma County. Like, it's crazy, man. Yeah, I mean, you gotta fucking, and there were so many times where it was like, this movie's not gonna get made. Yeah. And, and you have to hear that from like your partner too. Like, my wife was just like, I don't know, maybe you should go back to school. I don't think this movie's going to get made. She was always
go back
like,
to drum school, Francis.
Yeah, right. It was always, she's so fucking supportive, and like, but they're like, she's just being honest, and I have to be like, there's a lot of times where it didn't feel like it was going to happen.
I think all the things that went into it, it just seemed like all the chances. You're writing the personalized letters to selling the house to all of this. I think it's kind of that, not to go back to The Office with Creed Bratton, but like, you miss 100% shots. It's 100% of the shots that you don't take, sort of thing.
Yeah, 100%, dude.
You have to really fully invest yourself. And obviously it's paid off in numerous ways now.
Yeah, and Jim talks, I'm just ripping the words from Jim, but like, he said in interviews before, he's like, no one is going to believe in your movie more than you, and you need to act that way. And there's so much truth to that statement. It's like, I don't care who it is. They don't like, it's don't let anybody ever like gatekeep and keep you from like, keep you out of the room, because it needs to be you selling the thing that you believe in. Right. It's like, people need to see that passion, and, most of the time, like, a quote unquote suit is not going to have that kind of passion.
Sure.
No,
that makes sense.
Different priorities.
Totally, man. Yeah, they're not, you need to get people excited about the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's sorry, just like one quick thing. It's just like, I think by doing what like my DP and I did by like pretending like we had money, right? Like, and doing, here's like my shot list, right? It's like by doing this work before we even had money, it's like, this is, oh fuck, you can't see, but like, these are all the shot lists and overheads of every single shot in the movie. And it's like, it's really tedious, and you do that kind of work. But when you're trying to get people on board, people want to like be part of something, right? They're like, oh damn, like you're making this movie whether I'm a part of it or not.
Yeah.
And that's, you're saying a lot more than just being like, I'm not doing shit until somebody gives me money to make the movie, right?
Yeah.
Like then you're really asking them for permission. Don't ask for permission, just start making the thing, and then people will start to come on board.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. You're reminding me of two things. Hearing that story is making me think of behind the scenes stuff I've seen of Bruce Campbell, talking about them getting Evil Dead off the ground, in pretending that you have the money before you actually have it. And then just looking at all of your prep work, it's making me think of Mike Flanagan's like really intense shot books and stuff like that.
I think we both use Shot Designer, Mike and I. Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, man, that's you have to do that. Like,
yes.
And especially when you're working, when you don't have a lot of time and you don't have a lot of money, like, you need to put that much prep in. You can't be on set trying to figure things out the day of. Like, it's crazy, Sorry. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, speaking to that exactly, I just wanted to briefly give an applause, I guess, to your, specifically to your, I mean, the whole movie, but the standoff scene, and when everything kind of pops off, and just the editing on that and the tension building on that. And I was just curious, maybe without getting too shop talky, we only have you for so long, but how much of that was figured out, before and then in the editing room with you editing yourself? That sequence is so great.
Yeah, all of it was figured out. It was all very, very meticulously planned. And editing was not difficult because there was really no other way to cut this movie. It was like we only shot what we needed, and we committed to those long takes and those 2 shots. I mean, but with that said, like specifically, I mean, you bring up probably the one scene that was a little bit more figured out in post, because like you have 12 characters in a room all shouting at each other. You really don't have any other choice but to get coverage of everybody and then figure, I mean, I had a pretty damn good idea of like how that was going to be cut and what I needed. But that like is probably the one scene in the movie that was just like, this is a really hard scene to cover. So what do you just, you get the coverage you need, and you kind of piece it together. But for the most part, like, it was very planned of like, editing was like paint by numbers in a weird way. It was like, I just got in there and really just fucking my shot list was my guideline.
Yeah. It's great when you can do that too. It kind of, especially when you're wearing multiple hats for this. One last stop question before we move on to one other thing, but Bigfoot for President, what amazing human being found that crop top?
So that was written into the script.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that
special
was
made.
Sure. Yeah. Actually, it wasn't even specially made. So James owns a clothing company called Local Boogeyman. And when I was writing the script, I was like, writing it with him in mind, that he was going to finance it. So I was like, oh, I'm going to totally write a Local Boogeyman shirt into the script. And so I just picked Bigfoot for President. Now,
wow,
the shirt is cool, but what's cooler is that it's a crop top. And and that was all Nick. I'm giving fucking kudos to Nick for that, because he sent me a picture. He flew in. He's from Atlanta. He flew in like a week into production, and he was in the fucking wardrobe trailer, and he shows me a picture, and it was like, at first the crop top was like right below his nipple. And he was like, what do you think, man? And I was like, okay.
It just says Bigfoot at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Meet me in the middle, dude. So we ended up deciding like right, above or below the belly button or whatever it is. But yeah, that was all Nick. So deciding to make it a crop top, and he was so fucking right in that decision.
It's
I love
beautiful.
that.
And it's funny,
I love
if you
that so
see
much.
Nick, like he is sort of like very much adapted that character into his everyday life. Like he's pretty much all of his he rocks crop tops all the time now. It's really funny, dude.
Perfect.
You have that paradigm shift in your life when you're like, I can wear this now. Like,
Yeah.
He's
you've
like
made that
self-discovery.
statement.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we are going to shift to something we're called Mostly Horror. We know you probably can't say a lot, but we're going to ask you some questions. It's been announced a couple days ago, as of recording this, that you are taking on one of the new Evil Dead films that's coming out, as of yet untitled, obviously. Based on, I think, the Deadline article, this is something that you developed and brought to Sam Raimi and team, and then the project went from there. I'm curious if you could kind of talk about maybe the pressures of, going from everything that you've talked about with making this first, feature debut, lower budget, to now taking a beloved franchise. And you're obviously a horror fan, so taking this beloved franchise and making a new movie underneath the umbrella. I'm curious what pressures that comes with, or kind of what's going through your mind approaching this.
I don't sleep well at night. It's a lot of pressure. But like, yeah, I do love the movie is like, I sound like I'm bullshitting when I say this, but it really is one of the movies that made me want to make movies. Yeah. I mean that with all sincerity. I care about this franchise deeply, and I can't really speak to like what it is that I'm doing, but going back to your question about the pressures, like, obviously like jumping on that initial call with Zoom with Sam and Bruce and Rob, like, it's weird. And I got for sure nervous, but at the end of the day, it's like 10 seconds into it, we're just talking about movies. We're all here for the same reason, because we love movies, and that's how we relate to one another. And so like 10 seconds in the conversation, we're just talking about like Rolling Thunder or whatever the fuck it was, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, cool. Like we're just shooting the shit, Yeah. So that's like, it doesn't, not just trying to ignore the fact that like he's one of my heroes, but when you can just talk about movies, you're able to relieve some of that pressure, which is nice. But yeah, I don't know what to say about it.
It's okay. I know you can't go further. We can go to the next somewhat related question.
Yeah.
It's all very exciting though, man. It's like, it's weird, and it's, it's a dream come true, like for real, for real.
Only imagine.
Yeah.
We are beyond excited to see your take. I am
man.
curious, in kind of an era of remakes, reboots, things like that, with a lot of people, very diverse opinions on all of the remakes and reboots that are happening. I'm just curious, do you have like a top 3 horror reboots or reimaginings or revisits?
That's a good question. I really do love Fede's 2013.
It's amazing.
It's incredible. Yeah.
Yes,
that's a solid reboot. And it's very 100%. Much using like the same location. Lee took it out of the cabin and did it. It's his own thing with Evil Dead, but like, what Fede did is fucking dope. I definitely put that up there. I enjoy a lot of those like early 2000 like Michael Bay fucking horror remakes, like the Hills Have Eyes is a solid remake. Last House on the Left is a solid remake.
Yes.
I'm such a fan of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, so I can't say the same about that. They're cool, but like I have such a fucking deep love for Texas Chainsaw. So the original.
I could tell.
God, I actually have a piece of the a spindle from the staircase from the original house.
That makes sense.
Wow.
I watched High Desert Hell and was like, oh, he's a big Texas Chainsaw fan.
Yeah. I fucking love that movie. It is just so visceral, and like, God, I can't imagine watching that movie when it came out in like a theater and just being like, is this real? Is this a documentary?
Is this allowed?
Yeah. God, I'm trying to think right now about like remakes. I know once I get off, some are gonna come to mind. Be like, oh, of course.
That's what.
Wait, you guys
happens.
name some. I'm What are your favorites?
Obviously, the Thing is like a standard one.
Yeah,
have
of
to.
course,
Super
dude.
easy.
Yeah. I mean, you almost forget that's a remake, but
because it does its own thing
for sure. Yeah. I have one.
Yeah.
One. Sorry, The Fly.
No, go for it. Yes, of
Cronenberg's
course.
The Fly.
Cronenberg,
I mean, that is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a fucking masterpiece. I love the Vince Price original, but Cronenberg's is amazing.
Yes,
that's another one like The Thing. That's like it might as well be. You know what I mean? Like it just stands by itself.
Totally.
At a certain point.
Was also going to throw out David Bruckner's take on Hellraiser recently. I think that was a lot of fun and brought some new things to that franchise. New look.
I love Bruckner, and I feel like an asshole. I have not watched that movie yet, and
you should do it.
I know I will. I will for sure.
Because he's going to do the Blob next. He's just on the remake.
I know.
Remake.
I'm so excited for that. I love The Ritual.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you guys see that movie?
Of course. Yeah.
So fucking good. Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
No, he's Bruckner's great. Awesome. Well, listen, we really appreciate the time, Francis. We're going to do our damnedest to make sure that we get you back on when whenever your Evil Dead film comes out. Because we're very, very excited. As we wrap up, we normally end these conversations with something that we call mostly horror recommendations. I know that we've talked a lot about a lot of different films, but we like to ask our guests to recommend a horror film and then a non-horror film that they would want the listeners to check out. It doesn't need to be old or new or anything like that. It could be whatever you want it to be. It could also be something that inspired, Last Stop. It could be something that you're maybe watching for a new project. It's something along those lines.
Okay.
But whatever you would recommend for our listeners.
I'm just looking around my room right now. I have a million recommendations. Like, what can I say?
I
have an Oni Baba poster right there.
Okay.
Which is a great movie. Have you guys seen it?
Yeah. I have not.
Okay, check that movie out. It's fucking great. That's my horror pick is Oni Baba. And non-horror, just to tie it back to Last Stop, I guess. I'll be that guy. Rafifi. If you have not seen Rafifi, it's incredible, and I have a very obvious reference in Last Stop that not a lot of people get. But when they do get it, I've heard people be like, "Oh my god, is that Rafifi?" And I'm like, "Of course, it's Rafifi." But it's the scene with Miles and Sybil when they're driving, and he's talking about cutting the hole in the floor in the apartment building and getting the rope and go. That's all straight from Rafifi. Jules Dassin. It's incredible. It's a fucking noir heist film. And there's a sequence in that movie that's I think it's like a 30-minute sequence or something that with no score, no dialogue, and it's just them doing this heist, and it's incredible. So I'd say Rafifi.
Added to the watch list.
I love it. We have repeating phrases. Oni Baba, Rafifi. There's probably
there you go.
These are great. It's a theme. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Francis, we really appreciate the time. Couldn't be more excited for what you got coming next. Thank you guys so much for listening to our conversation with Francis Galluppi, writer, director, and editor, and more of The Last Stop in Yuma County. Thanks again to Francis for hopping on. We really appreciate the time. It's now time for our mostly horror recommendations of the week. I think I went last time because I recommended Knocked Loose. And so you're going to go first.
I'll go first. All right. I got two things. Well, one is a really easy one. And maybe this is a hint at some things coming up in the very near future, but I just recently watched Thunder Road.
Which I recommended a couple weeks ago, but it's fine for you to recommend.
I'm doubling down. I'm doubling down because it really was so great. We haven't talked about it since I watched it last night. It is... Dude, Jim Cummings is just a fucking nut. It really is. I highly recommend... everybody check out that movie. It is such an interesting, I said this, about Last Stop in Yuma County as well, but it is such an interesting balance of not just balance, but like a blending of comedy and tragedy that I have not seen before. Like it's done in this way that is so different. Like the tone of the movie, the filming of the movie, and everybody else, it's all played really straight, but the person that is kind of going through a lot just is a funny and weird person and handles very real feelings in a funny way at times. And so you're literally, it is a roller coaster, an emotional roller coaster of like laughing and then stomach sinking.
Yeah.
Over
Dude, the slap. The
yeah.
slap.
Dude, and we'll just
So
leave it there. Nothing else about that. But holy shit, this movie. Highly recommend everybody watch it. Also, if you're trying to get ahead at things that we have in the future, I'm not going to say much more about it right now, but I'm just telling you that you watching this movie will make future episodes easier on you. We're trying to get better at that. We know that, we want to like give you guys as much time to consume the content, all the amazing work out there. But yeah, so Last Stop. And then the other thing I want to recommend,
Thunder Road.
Yes. Thunder Road. Yes. Thunder Road. The last thing that I want to recommend, this is my third week in a row, I think, recommending a documentary. But I have been watching documentaries, man, like just nonstop. And I just recently watched one called Capturing the Freedmans. It is very dark, again, not necessarily for the faint of heart in terms of subject matter. I'll give you a brief synopsis from IMDb here. Capturing the Freedmans is a documentary on the Freedmans, a seemingly typical upper-middle-class Jewish family whose world is instantly transformed when the father and his youngest son are arrested and charged with shocking and horrible crimes. I will tell you that those crimes are of a sexual nature.
Big trigger warning.
Yeah, big trigger warning there, just so that everybody knows. But dude, I don't want to tell you guys much, but this is just one of the most wild rides I've ever been on. Of a case that doesn't make a lot of sense, and a family that is either in complete denial or is just so tuned into a lot of things that don't make sense. I honestly need to rewatch it to fully understand like what happened, but it is a trip. And yeah, it's one of the most interesting docs that I've seen in a long time. But be warned, because it is about some pretty dark stuff.
Did you watch the volcano doc?
Not yet. Fuck. All right.
All right.
I'll do that.
Next time
that'll be my rec next
I'm just
week.
curious. You'll be like, oh shit. I really want to watch all the things that you've recommended. All those docs sound really interesting. I don't do enough doc watching. All right. I have some random recs this week. The first rec, just because I think it's a fine movie, but I didn't absolutely love it. I'm still going to recommend it. Is Challengers. It's the new film that's out with Zendaya. It's directed by Luca Guadagnino. He did Suspiria. Carnita. He did Suspiria and Bones and All and Call Me by Your Name.
Okay.
Call Me by Your Name. I thought it was fine. It's, if you are looking for a film that has good acting, a unique score by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, who always kill it, and some really interesting cinematography, then watch Challengers. My next rec is of a Japanese film from 1998 that I've been wanting to watch for quite some time, called Afterlife. And here is the synopsis. On a cold Monday morning, a group of counselors clock in at an old-fashioned social services office. Their task is to interview the recently deceased, record their personal details, then, over the course of the week, assist them in choosing a single memory to keep for eternity.
Whoa.
So basically, you die, and you go to this place, and you have 3 days to select one memory that you want to keep for the rest of your life, and you forget everything else.
Fuck.
And it's really cool because there's it's told through like sit-down interviews, basically.
Oh my God.
And well, yeah, it's great because it starts that question right in your head while you're watching it. And basically they come up with that memory, but then they film a reenactment of that memory for you to keep. So you don't keep the memory actually like as you remember it. They film a reenactment of it, kind of, and with as close of detail as possible. Again, the film came out in 1998. Really interesting. But yeah, it obviously sparks these questions in your mind as you're watching it. What memory would I keep? Interesting, if only for that thought starter. But it's really cool because they filmed this like interview, like sit down interviews with people. And so there's some people that their interviews are scripted, so that way they keep the plot going. Like there's specific people that they focus on, but they brought in other people, like older people or whatever, and basically asked them this question. And so some of the interviews, or like some of the people, as you're like learning about them, that maybe they don't follow them the whole way through the whole movie, but like you still get their answer of the memory that they want. Those people are real, and it's like real people's like memories and stuff. So really authentic feeling movie. Yeah, I thought it was a tad slow, but I really enjoyed it.
It sounds amazing. What a
I own it.
It's a concept.
Oh yeah, I thought you were going to ask where to find it. It's a Criterion film that I have. I actually don't know if you can stream it somewhere, but yeah, would definitely recommend it.
Okay, yeah, I'll see if I can find it, and if not, I'll snag your copy.
Yeah, no, it's really cool, and definitely it gets you thinking. But really interesting concept.
Yeah, definitely have to check that out really quick, because you brought up Call Me by Your Name. I have one more rec that you reminded me of. I recently started.
I'm just going to recommend Army Hammer.
I recently started a docu-series. I have not finished it, called House of Hammer.
Nice.
And it is about.
I was curious if that's where you were going.
Listen, it is not. I don't know how much anyone listening has heard of Army Hammer, or that whole story just kind of fizzled out. Like you just haven't heard a lot about it since. In terms of like how much people are talking about it. But people heard about sexual crimes, and then also the big word that was being dropped, which is fucking cannibalism. But let me tell you that it goes way deeper and way farther back. His whole family is fucking we're talking like the top elite Illuminati type shit in the world. He comes from like money. He comes from power, and it is an insane look into his like past and just like the fucked up nature of all of the men in his family.
Interesting.
It is a trip. It is a ride. Highly recommend that everybody look into that as well.
All right. Good one. My last recommendation. Imagine the opposite of that. All right, Sean, imagine
Paddington 3.
You're not far. You're not far. Imagine an older movie. That's like the opposite of that. So I need you to guess. I just want to see if you guess it.
Imagine an older movie that's like the opposite of that Steve would have watched recently. Bug's Life. You watch Bug's Life because you're saying fuck the patriarchy.
The Wizard of Oz.
Great
film. Everyone should watch it.
What also, made you do that?
Because Sydney and I saw Wicked, and it's just we were just like, we should just watch Wizard of Oz again.
That'll do it.
It's great. I know all the songs still. And also, dude, the remaster that's on HBO right now is just absolute nonsense. The color is like,
really,
it almost does a disservice to the movie because you can see the matte paintings so clearly. And I probably just haven't seen the movie in recently enough to be like, oh, you can really see those matte paintings. But like, dude, the color is just absolutely gorgeous. Because everything is just so like stark colored because it was one of the first color movies. So, so that's my other recommendation is Wizard of Oz. Movie's amazing. So
I'll take it.
On that note, are you a good witch or a bad witch? Let us know. Send us an email, mostlyhorrormovienight@gmail.com. Have you ever been to a gas station that didn't have any gas? Like the last stop in Yuma County? Tell us. Mostly Horror Pod on Instagram. Mostly Horror, just Mostly Horror on TikTok and Twitter. What are we on Threads, Sean?
We're Mostly Horror. It's the same thing. Mostly Horror Pod.
Mostly Horror Pod. So it's the same as our Instagram.
You can also
our Instagram and our Threads. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say you can reach our Threads through Instagram. But if you're not on Instagram, but for whatever reason you're interested in Threads, check us out. Just follow us on all the shit. We appreciate it.
Yeah. If you are only on Threads and not on Instagram, please let us know.
Yeah, let us know.
You're an interesting microcosm of person.
Also, a prompt from one of your recs. If you're dying
straight up,
what memory would you keep if you feel safe enough with us to tell us that memory and you want us to share it on the show? Please send that. Or if you don't want us to share it, you just want to share it with us. I'm beyond curious at that, and we'll be doing some thinking myself.
Yeah. On that note, thank you guys always for listening. Like, rate, subscribe, all that stuff. We'll catch you next week.
Goodbye.